Welcome to our continuing series, Questions and Answers for a World in Crisis. Auroville, Part 9. I don't know, I think they're moving all right over there. Mother, 2 days ago, Z said to me, "Oh, it has been a good lesson. Now we are convinced that the Westerners' way isn't better than ours." Because they kept thinking, all of them, that the materialistic way brought about better realizations. So now they are convinced. I told you that the Soviet consul is enthusiastic. He saw the charter in English first. In English there is divine's consciousness with the apostrophe. In the final English version, the apostrophe was removed. To live in Auroville, one must be a willing servitor of the divine consciousness. He said, "It's a pity. It evokes the idea of God." And S, who had been there, said, "It is not that at all. There's nothing religious in all this affair. We'll show you the French." Then he read Conscience Divine, divine consciousness, and he was satisfied. He said, "This is just what we want to realize." And without these words, it would be officially recognized and supported by the Soviet government. Then they asked him to translate it into Russian. But finally, what's being read out in Auroville isn't his translation. It's the one by T. She has just come, and words don't frighten her. But I sent him my permission. I had it explained to him that words were just a more or less clumsy transcription, not only of the idea, but of what is above the idea, the principle. That it didn't matter much whether these or those words were used. Each one uses the words that suit him best. And that, therefore, I allowed him to use the words that would be acceptable to his government. The Soviet consul said yes, he was very glad. He said, "When the Soviet government officially supports something, it's serious. It's true. I know it. They are very generous. So I hope it will have a favorable result." And you see, it's just what I wanted. In Auroville, for a long time, they have been enthusiastic, which is good, but perhaps they don't understand so well. The Russians, in their nature, are mystic. And as that has been oppressed, suppressed, naturally, it has gained a lot of force. And now it tends to want to burst. But if both together support Auroville, we won't have any more financial hassles. It has been coming, little by little, little by little. I told you what Sri Aurobindo revealed to me about India's condition, which was the symbolic representation of the present condition of mankind. And that's why, Sri Aurobindo told me, that's why Auroville has been created. Then I understood. Since then, it has become very clear. Clear. I mean, he seems to have made it spread, and people seem to begin to understand. So there. September 21st, 1966. This conversation came about following a personal question of Satprem's, who asked the mother if he should not refuse an amount of money offered to him by the French government, a war pension. Satprem's intention was to refuse that pension, not wanting to feel tied to any government and any country for any amount of money. Mother advised him to accept that money for the divine work. Mother: I had a revelation, in the sense that it was more on the order of a vision. For external reasons, I was looking at the sorry state in which all countries find themselves, the truly painful and dangerous conditions of the earth. And there was a sort of all-embracing vision showing how nations, men taken as nations, have acted and are increasingly acting in a growing falsehood, and how they have used all their creative power to create such formidable means of destruction, with, at the back of their minds, the really childish notion that the destruction would be so terrible that no one would want to use them. But they don't know. They ought to know, but they don't. That things have a consciousness and a force of manifestation, and that all those means of destruction are pressing to be used. And even though men may not want to use them, a force stronger than they will be pushing them to do so. Then, seeing all this, the imminence of the catastrophe, there was a sort of call or aspiration to bring down something that could at least neutralize that error. And it came, an answer. I can't say I heard it with my ears, but it was so clear, so strong and precise that it was indisputable. I am obliged to translate it into words. If I translate it into words, I may say something like this: that's why you have created Auroville. And with the clear vision that Auroville was a center of force and creation, with, how can I explain, a seed of truth, and that if it could sprout and develop, the very movement of its growth would be a reaction against the catastrophic consequences of the era of armament. I found this very interesting, because this birth of Auroville wasn't preceded by any thought. As always, it was simply a force acting, like a sort of absolute manifesting. And it was so strong when the idea of Auroville presented itself to Mother, that I could have told people, even if you don't believe in it, even if all circumstances appear to be quite unfavorable, I know that Auroville will be. It may be in 100 years. It may be in 1,000 years. I don't know. But Auroville will be, because it has been decreed. So it was decreed, and done quite simply. like that, in obedience to a command without any thought. And when I was told that, I say, I was told, but you understand what I mean. When I was told that, it was to tell me, here is why you have made Auroville. You are unaware of it, but that's why. Because it was the last hope to react against the imminent catastrophe. If some interest is awakened in all countries for this creation, little by little, it will have the power to react against the error they have committed. I found this very interesting because I had never thought about it. And naturally, when I was shown that, I understood. I perceived how the creation of Auroville has an action in the invisible. And what action? It's not a material, outward action. It's an action in the invisible. And since then, I have been trying to make countries understand it. Of course, not outwardly, because they all think they're much too clever to be taught anything, but inwardly, in the invisible. It's fairly recent. It dates from 2 or 3 days ago. I had never been told this. It was said very clearly, seen, shown like this, gesture of a scene offered to the sight. So my interest in Auroville has considerably increased since then, because I have understood that it isn't just a creation of idealism, but quite a practical phenomenon, in the will, to thwart and counterbalance the effects, the frightful effects of the psychological error of believing that fear can save you from a danger. Fear attracts the danger much more than it saves you from it. And all these countries, all these governments commit blunder upon blunder because of that fear of the catastrophe. All this is simply to tell you that if nations collaborate in the work of Auroville, even to a very modest extent, such as this offer of money from the French government, it will do them good. It can do them a lot of good, a good that can be out of proportion to the appearance of their actions. Question. You speak of the imminence of a catastrophe, but still, Auroville will take some time to be realized? Mother. No. I am speaking of the country's collaboration in creating something. It's not when Auroville has been completed. It's the nation's collaboration in creating something, but creating something founded on the truth instead of a rivalry in falsehood's creation. It's not when Auroville is ready. When Auroville is ready, it will be one town among all other towns. And it's only its own capacity of truth that will have power. But that remains to be seen. No, the point is a combined interest in building something founded on the truth. They have had a combined interest, combined without any mutual liking, of course, in creating a power of destruction built on falsehood. Well, Auroville means diverting a little of that force. The quantity is minor, but the quality is superior. It's truly a hope. It's founded on a hope of doing something that can be the beginning of a harmony. No, it's right now. Right now. The force of propagation is far greater. It's out of proportion to the transmitting center, Mother, which, on a world scale, is so to say unknown and almost non-existent. But the center, the power of radiation and propagation, is out of proportion. It's rather remarkable. The response to Auroville is everywhere. A response from New Africa, a response in France, a response in Russia, a response in America, a response in Canada, and a response in numerous countries, in Italy, everywhere. And not just individuals, groups, tendencies, movements, even in governments. What's proving to be the most refractory, and the irony of it is wonderful, is the United Nations. Those people are outdated. Oh, they haven't yet gone beyond the materialistic, anti-religious movement. And they made a derogatory remark about the Auroville brochure, saying it was mystic with religious tendency. The irony is lovely. Unfortunately, following the present tendencies, for Auroville they are trying to get UNESCO's support. I, of course, knew beforehand that those UNESCO people couldn't understand. But they are trying, because everywhere people, it's a sort of superstition. Everywhere people say, no, I'll open my purse strings only with UNESCO's approval and encouragement. I am talking about those whose contribution matters. Lots of people, so. Only, to me, all this is the crust, the quite superficial experience, the crust. And things have to happen underneath, beneath that crust. It's just an appearance. I said that to those who look after Auroville. I told them, those people of UNESCO are 200 years behind the Earth's march. So there's little hope they'll understand. But anyway, I didn't tell them not to deal with them. I don't give any advice. But tiny details, such as the one we spoke of just before, the French government's offer of a pension, are an indication. It's countries collaborating in the truth without knowing it. And it's very good. It will do them good. It's good for them. It doesn't matter if they aren't aware of it, smiling. They won't have the pleasure of having done it, that's all. Silence. But I was the first to be very interested, because it came like that. Gesture of irresistible dissent, with all-powerful authority. That's why Auroville has been created.